Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Mother's Basement. Now, I finished the marathon, Chester Marathon, done all my training, 4 hours, 9 minutes, raised £500 for charity. Boom, that's been on my mind for the last, however many months training for that. And I've kind of, taken a step back from this channel. We're back. I've just got a trip away tomorrow, so I'm filming this and potentially one more video. Then the last week of October, sorry, we should be daily, back to daily, shorts on top, all that stuff. So, yeah, and I should actually have time to watch anime. So, let's see what we need to be looking out for.
The craziest years in anime history, also regular history, rolls to a close. I feel an odd sense of relief to see fall's anime lineup be nearly pretty great. Coming off the tail end of two all-time banger seasons and staring down the barrel of winter 2026, it's just nice to finally have a slightly lighter load of returning series with only Spy Family, Ranma Half, Hiroaka, To Your Eternity, Kingdom, Campfire Cooking in Another World, Isekai Quartet, Blue Orchestra, Kakurio.
See, so Isekai Quartet is on my list of things I want to watch, and To Your Eternity. Yes.
Bed and Breakfast for Spirits, Let This Grieving Soul Retire, and Uma Musume Cinderella Grey to worry about. Plus a new Gintama spin-off. Oh. And One Punch Man, I guess. That leads...
And I want to check that out as well. I've seen it's not had great reviews, but yeah. Oh, Chainsaw Man movie as well, yes.
It's almost an entire hour a week to start catching up on my anime backlog. And for the first time in forever, my top 10 new anime recommendations for the season are actually a top 10. Plus 3. But that still rounds down to 10. I'm almost starting to remember what sleep feels like. These are the ones to watch for fall 2025. But now it's time to start our journey together with a stop in that most familiar, homey, and cozy anime setting, a strange, dangerous parallel world. My status as an assassin obviously exceeds the hero's.
Is this an isekai?
Is a prime example of what an isekai
Yep.
can be when it actually cares about its protagonist's place in the world he came from.
Yeah, because they don't really tend to pay attention to that, do they, at all? But you can just tell from the titles straight away. It's an isekai. It's like,
Akira Oda is a natural wallflower, so unassuming that every time he opens his mouth, a few of his classmates wonder how they missed a new transfer student. So when the whole class gets isekai'd Ari Ferretta style, it's only natural he ends up with a stealth-based assassin class, though how he got higher base stats than the hero remains a mystery. One, he doesn't really have much free time to solve right now because the king who summoned them is clearly up to something, and his stealth powers make him the only one who can do anything about it. Though he's not completely alone. A knight captain with convenient magic infrared vision just happens to be plotting a coup of his own against the corrupt monarch, and so helps Akira train the skills he'll need to vacate the throne non-lethally, which is one of the things that immediately set this isekai apart for me.
ステータス上の職業が暗殺者でもそれが義務付けられているわけではありませんし
Interesting.
君は生き残って家族の元に帰るために人を殺さない暗殺者になる
Too few anime treat violence with the real moral weight it deserves, and even fewer isekai so much as think about how all the killing their heroes do might make them fundamentally unfit to return to modern society. Hell, barely any isekai think about returning to society at all these days.
Yeah, there's never the, excuse me, what if I actually go back? I'm sure Shield Hero mentions it a few times, because I'm sure there was a moment with him and Raftalia, he mentions going back in there. Yeah, it's always just, I'm here now, this is it.
It's kind of a problem. So, while I do love me some bloody, pulpy, edgy messes, as you will see later in this video, it's refreshing to see something with all the hallmarks of edgelord isekai-like failure frame going in this more thoughtful direction. Plus, as a Sunrise show, it's actually got some real production sauce behind its grim, dark atmosphere, instead of just typical dog water isekai animation with a tinted backlight. An isekai with an emphasis on espionage and revolution sounds like a ton of fun to me. And it goes to show there's still plenty of space for new ideas, even in such an oversaturated genre.
Yeah.
Though, on that note, the villainess anime field is getting nearly as crowded as isekai
Yep. Every goddamn season. Okay.
was a decade ago, which means new shows really need to hit you with a hell of a hook right out of the gate if they're gonna compete.
この場を去る前に最後に一つだけお願いしてもよろしいでしょうか。
仕方あるまい貴様願いとは何だ。
そこのクソ甘をぶっ飛ばしてもよろしいですか。
Oh.
何を言って
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
I said hook. That's clearly a straight, but I guess it'll do. Scarlett Elvandimian is a noble lady of fine pedigree and immaculate upbringing with a slightly unconventional hobby. She enjoys nothing in this life quite so much as finding those in the most desperate need of a good punch right in their stupid f***ing faces and doing them the courtesy.
Oh.
Unfortunately, she's forced to put that hobby aside after finding herself betrothed to the second prince, one of the kingdom's neediest souls in that particular regard, and all she gets in exchange for her incredible restraint is endless abuse and ridicule. That is, until he frees her like a goddamn idiot.
Whoa.
What apparently slipped Prince
Jeez, that really came out of nowhere. That's class. Oh my god.
Kyle's mind here is that his dad hooked them up for a reason, namely that Scarlett has been blessed by the god of f***ing time with the power of basically Diet Zawarudo, which makes for some extremely fun fight scenes that he's not really in a position to properly appreciate.
Wow. Whoa. The little scream, the wah!
His older brother, on the other hand, finds Scarlett's outbursts and barely restrained rage to be endlessly entertaining, and thus takes to following her around on her never-ending quest to give everyone exactly what they
deserve.
have coming.
Nice.
Much to her chagrin, as Julius von Palestan has one of the most punchable personalities she has ever encountered, coupled with a genuinely kind heart that is way too nice to actually deserve it. Pretty much the most annoying kind of person imaginable for her personally. In other words, it's a 10 out of 10 romantic dynamic, and I can only hope that the show will make good on the promise in its OP that one day they're gonna fight each other.
Yo, that actually looks good. Okay. Alright.
This anime really has it all. Great characters, fantastic comedy, saucy romance, and top-of-the-line action. It's
Cool.
a strong frontrunner for anime of the season, so even if you're not usually into villainess stuff, you really ought to give it a shot.
Okay.
And by the same token, I heartily recommend checking out Tojima Wants to Be a Kamen Rider, even if you've never seen Kamen Rider before. Like I haven't, though I have been meaning to change that since it's such a quintessential part of Japanese culture, and
Yeah, little Karibo absolutely loves it, doesn't he?
man, does this series ever get me pumped to finally take that plunge. It's steeped in such passionate love for Japan's most iconic non-snack related superhero that even if you don't get a single reference, you will get it.
ライダーファイトお前何仮面ライダーどっちがライダーパン
Whoa.
Ever since he was a young lad glued to the boob tube, Tojima Tanzaburo has dreamed of becoming Kamen Rider and battling the sinister forces of Shocker.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
That's not too unusual in Japan, but Tojima didn't give up that dream when he hit high school. Instead, he started working for it harder,
Damn.
training his body and mind every day to become the ultimate weapon of justice. But what does he have to show for it as he celebrates his
Aw.
40th birthday in a depressingly empty apartment? Ripped abs and the power to take down a bear with his bare hands?
Jesus.
Bears aren't supervillains, but you know who is, or at least close enough. The random groups of ski-masked goons who've been going around Japan lately, robbing convenience stores in shocker closet cosplays, in a bizarre online social trend that Tojima's all too happy to see bleed into his real life, especially in convenient proximity to a summer festival stand with Kamen Rider masks in stock.
Whoa.
仮面ライダー
Ha! Whoa. Oh my god!
But is this all really just a meme that's gone too far, or is there something more sinister going on here? After all, Tojima isn't even the only wannabe rider out there.
タックルは死んでない。
Tojima wants to be a Kamen Rider is a compelling
This is reminding me of oh, what was that anime called? Something Flamingo. And it's like about people wanting to become superheroes and that. I want to say Pink Flamingo, but no, it's not that. Oh, I can't remember.
exploration of how fictional
Let me know.
symbols can inspire us and reshape our reality, wrapped up in an absolutely kick-ass street-level superhero story that reminds me more than a little of, well, Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass, yeah,
and
okay.
more to the point, of Samurai Flamenco.
That's the
my
one!
beloved. And if
Samurai Flamenco, yeah. Oh, wow, yes.
this show manages
Flamingo.
to be even half that crazy, it'll be one of the wildest rides of the year. Speaking of anime titles that start with a guy's name, though, Yano's Ordinary Life is a laid-back little romantic comedy thing about a guy named Yano trying his best to live an ordinary life, despite the fact that he is very clearly cursed with some sort of Milo Murphy's Law type dealie that has him heading to school with a brand new injury basically every day.
確かにトラックにひかれそうになったけどすぐ走って避けたんだ
This ends up catching the eye of class president Kyoko, a kindly young woman who takes it upon herself to make sure the new kid in class is okay, sees him getting into several very preventable accidents, and from there kind of Florence Nightingales her way into a whole crazy one-sided crush situation. Though not one-sided for the reasons you might think. Yano puts up walls, but not to protect himself. Deep down, he's a deeply responsible young man who just can't stand the thought of his curse hurting
Other
someone
people.
else.
Aw, it's like, don't get close. I don't want to hurt you. Oh.
But even deeper down, he still wants that thing in the title, and Kyoko pledges to help him make it happen in a way that an even slightly less oblivious guy would immediately clock as her asking him out. Luckily for her, though, Yano has basically zero social experience, you know, on account of the curse. This right here is a downright delightful anime with
yeah,
a
seems
warm-hearted
nice, seems
sense
cool.
of humor and an immensely charming art style. I don't know if there's all that much more to it, but I also don't think there really needs to be. Sometimes with rom-coms, all you want is something simple, clean, and cute,
Yeah.
and Yano-kun absolutely fits that bill.
Never boring even for a minute. It's my world and we're all living in it.
So does A Star Brighter Than the
Star
Sun,
Brighter Than
an
the Sun.
adorable new shoujo thing about a tall girl with self-confidence issues named Sai, whose childhood friend slash crush at first sight, Koki, grew up to be the most popular dude in their middle school.
All
And
right.
unfortunately, in the process, they grew apart over the years, back to a last name basis. So now Kamishiro-san just treats Iwata-chan like any other girl, volunteering to do extra work for the sports festival so it'll be just the two of them late at night in the classroom alone, taking her all the way back home on the back of his bike and then walking the rest of the way after he blows a tire, running over to grab her in the middle of the scavenger
I
hunt when
see.
he's tasked
This
with
is
finding,
not
quote,
what-
a
okay,
cute
yes.
girl. So she has no way of knowing how he feels about her, and she's left to keep wondering, even as they both enter the top-level high school that she got into pretty easily with her good grades, while he studied his ass off to just barely make it right after she told him she'd be going there. For some reason. Just a shame he's not dropping any hints he might like her back. The kid's totally unreadable. Natural born poker pro, I tell you what. So, yeah, this one's not exactly shaking up the shoujo rom-com formula, but it executes on that formula beautifully with a soft, appealing art style, especially in the flashbacks, likable, well-defined characters, and perfectly timed Doki Doki moments that keep the pace feeling steady and relaxed, despite the show covering like 8 whole grades worth of backstory in its first 23 minutes. If you need your shoujo fix good and fast, A Star Brighter Than the Sun does not disappoint.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you like your love stories a little bit messier, then you might enjoy This Monster Wants to Eat Me.
Okay.
An extra toxic tale of love between two maidens, Hinako and Shiori, the latter of whom just happens to be a maiden of the mer variety, which in Japanese folklore just happened to eat people, which would be a bit of a red flag in most relationships. But the thing about Hinako is she doesn't really want to be alive anymore on account of the crippling PTSD and survivor's guilt from watching her whole family drown.
Oh. This is very dark.
So, kind of a green flag for her, and who am I to yuck a young lady's yums? Of course, the series would be over pretty quick if that were all there was to it. There's something about Hinako that apparently makes her delicious to yokai, but Shiori believes that her flavor will only ripen with age, so for now, she's content to simply hang around, protecting her prey from other monsters on the hunt, and presumably getting a little weird with it eventually. Kind of like what that thing that's not Hikaru does for Yoshiki after all the other things on the mountain start noticing him.
それはまるであまりの凄惨さに指一本動かないのに
This Monster Wants to Eat Me isn't quite on the same level as the summer Hikaru died in terms of direction or production values, but it is an impressively unnerving anime nonetheless that does a particularly great job of putting us in Hinako's soggy school slippers, using surreal underwater imagery and sound design to portray her disassociating from day-to-day life, the
Wow, I like that.
call of the watery grave.
Oh, yeah, that's dark, but it's a very good visual representation of how she's feeling. I like that. Show, don't explain words. Boom.
Ever present at the edges of her hearing. Design-wise, the monsters themselves could be scarier, at least the monsters of the week, but the predatory seduction that Yui Ishikawa drips into her performance as Shiori is compellingly creepy enough to make up for that. But speaking of cozying up to cute yet friendly monsters that could eat you at any moment and make you feel a lot of confusing sexual things, Digimon's back!
Yo,
and it's
what?
not just back, it's never been more back.
Oh, really? Like, really legit. Oh, are we back on Digimon? Are we legit back on Digimon? Because I'm down for that.
Baby, the new card game's going as strong as ever. Digimon Story Time Stranger just came off a near decade-long dev cycle to jump right to the front of the pack of not just JRPG of the year, but all-around Game of the Year. And now, to complete the Poke marketing trifecta, Toei's dropping a brand new anime, the first in 4 years, with perhaps the boldest and most exciting interpretation of the Digimon concept since Tamers.
No
Or
way.
at least the most exciting pilot episode. Every Digimon series is a year long after all, so the overall quality is more about how well all the individual episodes are written when it gets into the inevitable Monster of the Week grind than how well the overarching plot is set up.
Yeah.
But it is off to an amazing start.
Class.
サムロ
喋った。
当たり前だってなブリッジお前のサポタマから生まれたんだってな
The setting immediately
Very likable monster.
intrigues. A post-warming world where the haves live comfy lives in climate-controlled bubbles, while the have-nots are forced to slum it in whatever apartments are still left above the tide line. I'd watch a regular cyberpunk anime in that kind of world, but add Digimon to the mix
Cool.
with every hacker on the web bringing their own partner to the party, while wild ones roam the slums, devouring the data and energy right out of people's cyber implants, and you've got a show with real potential.
Cool.
Also, the digital world isn't Hosoda-fied in this one for once. Not that I mind the Mamoru Hosoda aesthetic, it's just nice to see Digimon shaking it up a bit. And speaking of, with all the flooding and new sci-fi infrastructure, the real world has taken on a bit of the surreal, techno-naturalistic feel of the digital world from the original adventure, which is very fun to look at. It's also fun to look at all the cinematic Sakuga in the pilot episode, although, again, this will be running for a very long time, so don't expect that animation quality
In
to be
every
consistent.
episode,
But
yeah.
even so, I think the visual design of this series is strong enough to work, even if it's
It does look
reduced
really
to a
good.
slideshow. And the story, at least so far, is not pulling its punches for a kid's series. If you've got a child in your life that you want to watch some good anime with, or you just miss watching Digimon yourself, this is looking like a real good one.
Cool.
But if that's still not enough kids hanging out with cute supernatural critters for you, you might also want to check out Shabake, a spooky
Shabake.
new historical fantasy anime based on a widely beloved series of Japanese heavy novels that follows Ichitaro, the sickly young heir to a wealthy merchant family in Edo-era Nihon Bashi, who was blessed by a god at birth and now lives with the aid and protection of various friendly yokai.
Cool.
But the young master isn't exactly happy living such a confined life, and one fateful night his yearning for greater freedom leads him right to the scene of a murder, which he'll need to use all his wits to solve, and maybe a bit of supernatural help. The mystery here is more than a bit of a slow burner. 2 episodes in, Ichitaro hasn't even formally taken the case yet, but that's hardly a bad thing when it gives the anime time to develop its characters, plant clues and red herrings, and really soak in its historical atmosphere.
Yeah, that's cool, because like this is the thing I tend to hate about like murder mystery kind of stuff, is that like the hints as to who it is tend to just kind of come out of nowhere and just let the plot just go. But if they're actually spending time giving you like reason to like, you know, to things to follow and that's always really interesting. Like I can't remember what it was, but it would always be like, that came out of nowhere. How did they actually solve that? And you just gotta believe everything that they're telling you. And it's like, could have given us little hints and stuff in the background. Well, I can't. I was like, I can't
There
remember.
are so many little details that make its world feel authentically alive and lived in, though you do have to already be picking up what it's putting down to fully appreciate them. This is clearly an anime made for fans of the books first and foremost, who won't mind spending some quality time with the characters before it gets to the actual point, and that might make it a little hard to get into for all the Western anime fans who haven't read the books yet, which is every Western anime fan who can't read Japanese, and that's already a massive uphill battle for an authentic historical series with even dumber hairstyles than regular anime. But That is exactly the kind of deliberate pacing that separates truly great mysteries from the merely good ones, and while, of course, I can't say for sure if it will be great this early into the anime, with a series of books this long-running and acclaimed being adapted with this much panache, I am more than happy to give this anime the benefit of the doubt and let it cook.
Nice.
For fans of the Apothecary Diaries, I have a feeling this could be the sleeper hit of the season. The conflict at the heart of Ninja versus Gokudo
Okay, let's get into this. Oh, it's on Prime, alright.
also stretches back to the Edo era, when valiant shinobi under orders from the shogun fought in the shadows to curtail the ambitions of the Yakuza. Hundreds of years hence, with the shogunate long since dissolved, that battle still rages on, and man, is it ever a sick f***ing battle.
Nice.
Wrong. Speak up, Heikichi. I'm sorry. I'm not really feeling so good.
Shoot me!
What?
He's fast.
Yes, that right there. Just inject that shit directly into my veins,
Yeah, sometimes you just need this. Sometimes you just need some dumb fun.
because that is what I call fucking anime. Ridiculous, over the top,
Yes.
easily dubbed, pure, stupid, awesome, ultra violence with an emphasis on the awesome and just as much emphasis on the stupid. This is the kind of anime I live
Hell
for.
yeah.
It is not, however, the kind of anime that Shinoha Tanaka lives for. This pathologically stoic ninja warrior rendered incapable of smiling or laughing by Yakuza-related trauma has only one source of joy in his life: the long-running and widely beloved magical girl franchise Pretty Cure. But that all
Okay.
changes one day when he finally makes a friend. Kiwami Kimura, a fellow Precure fanatic who actually works for one of the anime's major sponsors, simply sharing their passion for all 17 classic seasons while comparing their exclusive merch
my
from the
God.
latest pop-up shop is enough to give Shinoha his first proper chuckle in years. And it seems like the power of otaku camaraderie might really be the cure he needs.
Hell yeah.
There's just one small problem. See, it turns out that Pretty Cure is actually a Yakuza front, and Kiwami is the secret shadow boss of an entire crime family.
Oh.
But maybe, just maybe, their budding bromance could be the key to ending this bloody feud once and for all. That's right, bitches. It's yaoi-coded Ninja Yakuza Romeo and Juliet. I fucking love anime!
Yeah.
On the subject of forbidden
Damn, that's like so fucking cool. Let's have it. Alright.
love, anyone who's seen High School Musical can tell you there is no love more forbidden than a basketball guy's secret passion for the performing arts. Wandance tells the story of
Okay.
Kotani Kaboku, a high school freshman with a bad stutter and worse self-esteem who wants nothing more than to fit in and be normal. But what counts as normal for a guy in his small mountain town is pretty narrow criteria, so mostly he just keeps his head down and goes with the flow. Until he meets Wanda, a fellow first-year...
God, look at the animation on those eyes, Jesus.
About busting a move where everyone can see her, whose carefree confidence ignites something in him he didn't know was there. His own moves may not be all that impressive. Sorry, his own move. He only knows the one. But every dance starts with just one step, and his is to join the dance club. Though it remains to be
Alright.
seen how that'll go down with his douchey friends from the basketball team. Wandance is a rich, sharply written character study with quite a bit to say regarding self-expression, self-doubt, and that old Japanese idiom about the nail that sticks up and hammers and stuff. And the anime builds on that already strong foundation with evocative cinematic storyboarding and an utterly fantastic licensed soundtrack. But unfortunately, once again, there is just one small problem. The dancing scenes kinda suck. Not
Aw.
the motion captured dancing itself. That's great. They got a BTS choreographer.
The
on staff
layering.
to do it. But the character models performing it look
Yeah.
like they were made a decade ago, which coincidentally seems to be exactly how long it's been since Cyclone Graphics Inc. last worked on an anime. It's a massive letdown, to put it mildly, especially
Yeah.
in a world where stuff like Girls Band
Bit
Cry
disappointing.
and Bang Dream exists, but everything else about the show is absolutely phenomenal. So if you can't look past that, you will be missing out on one of the year's best coming-of-age stories. Kind of like how people who couldn't get past the
Beastars!
furry thing missed out on Beastars. Though anyone who could should definitely be keeping an eye on With You, Our Love Will Make It Through. An anime about, you know, it's probably easier to just show you.
獣人って毛で覆われてるんだ。あ、腹筋割れてる。体大きいし。私変態みたい。やめよう。
In an alternate reality Japan, on a reservation nestled in the middle of Saitama, there lives a small society of beastmen created in some sort of experiment many years ago. They don't exactly live alongside mankind. All 3,000 are currently segregated behind towering steel walls in a settlement with mediocre amenities and no doctors or hospitals to speak of. But in 20XX, a new government program has given a few exceptional beast kids a chance to study at human schools.
Right,
Tsunaga
okay.
Hidaka is one such transfer student. A mild-mannered, blue-furred dog boy who dreams of becoming his people's first physician, but soon finds himself distracted from his studies by the irresistible scent of his sweet-hearted classmate, Mari Asaka, who, for her part, finds it just as difficult to resist them fuzzy abs. Unfortunately, most of their classmates aren't quite so open-minded. From casual microaggressions to full-on physical bullying, Hidaka faces quite a bit of prejudice, which he has no choice but to bear with quiet dignity. Such is the pressure placed on the legally designated model minority. But at least one other kid in class is woke enough to stand up for him,
Nice.
and if the OP's any indication, that social consciousness is gonna land Buddy a cat girlfriend of his own.
Alright.
all along. And not the coward's kind of cat girl either. This one is clearly by and for the freaks, and it gets plenty freaky even by the end of episode 1. So ladies,
Oh
if that other
my.
shoujo thing on this list was just too wholesome for your tastes, you're in luck. But I do think that everyone ought to at least give this anime a shot, because Shin Itagaki's adaptation is both gorgeously animated and brilliantly storyboarded, and the urban fantasy world building is legitimately fantastic. But speaking of Beastars, hot on the tail of their incredible run on Dandadan, Science Saru continues to be the gift that
What we
keeps
got
on giving
now?
to anime enjoyers in general, and to me personally, by finally, after all these years, giving me a second real Christmas anime.
Sander.
At long last, I have something to watch after I'm done with Tokyo Godfathers that's not that one episode of Toradora, that other episode of K-On!, or the DVD case for Itsudate My Santa that I stare at for a while before realizing that if I'm really that desperate, I should just fucking end it already
Oh god, damn.
every year. And then I put on, like, a Muppet Christmas Carol or something, and, you know, I'm mostly okay. But now, me, you, and your whole family can watch anime all Christmas Eve long if we want, with only a little bit of K-On! Coping involved depending on how early we start. Well, okay, maybe not the whole family.
Whoa.
赤い服を着てよサンタ
No, kids, don't worry, he's not dead. That's actually the last descendant of Santa Claus right there, and his elf assistant was just doing a bit of magic to make his shirt red so that his red shirt can activate his bloodline powers, and he's gonna turn into Santa and heal that right up right now.
What?
In a second. Just, you know, give it a moment. Any minute now.
Amazing.
For a second there, I thought this anime was gonna get really f***ed up, and she's wearing a bomb vest in class. Okay then. Now, there is a method to Shiori's madness. Her best friend, Ono-san, who was a big-time Christmas movie appreciator in her own right, disappeared mysteriously 6 months ago, and while the cops have long since declared her dead, Shiori still believes that not only is she alive, but if they use Santa's innate magical connection to every child who believes in him, they can find her. Which is not the kind of innocent magic.
This is so mad. I love random stupid, like, ideas that get put out there and just make it work. That's so cool.
Thinking you'd expect from a Japanese school child who acts this American, but that's precisely what makes this show so compelling. It's not every day you see an anime that's this dark and this wholesomely goofy at the same time, but here, as she did with Beastars, Paru Itagaki excels at blending those seemingly dissonant tones. And despite how well Studio Orange handled that anime, it's hard to think of a more perfect match for her eccentric approach to art and storytelling than Science Saru, fresh off of Dawn to Dawn. The original manga is as shamelessly weird as the studio itself, and they animate the ever-loving shit out of every last weird little detail. Science Saru's not the only studio that's...
We're at some very, Gurren Lagann, you know, where they do the stills for the characters when they're going, bro, fight the power. Looked very much like that art there. Anyway.
Flexing this season, though. Dusk Beyond the End of the World is a brand spanking new original anime from PA Works, made to celebrate 25 years of producing more original anime than basically anyone else in the industry. And if they can keep up the quality of episodes 1 and 2 through its whole run, it could well be one of their best originals ever. Now, that isn't exactly a small if, considering how some of their other original shows like Glasslip and Fairy Gone have gone, but given that this is JoJo director Naokatsu Suda's own original script, I've got a pretty good feeling about it. At the very least, it's off to a hell of an impressive start, if you skip over the boring prologue in episode 0, that is, which, like most episode 0s, isn't really necessary to follow the main plot. It just adds some backstory and context that you'll appreciate more after you're into the show anyway.
Trying to think of an episode 0 that's important. I'm thinking Unlimited Blade Works. Didn't Unlimited Blade Works have an episode 0? And that was just one of I think that was important. And it was 52 minutes long. Or was it just 1 and 2? No, I'm sure it was a 0. Oh, I can't remember.
Which, to be fair, you might have some doubts about that happening, what with all the qualifiers I've already added to this recommendation, so allow me to assuage them.
Very Teddy Lloyd-esque with the music. Love it. Yo! Okay, I'm down with this.
Once it gets going, and episode 1 gets going very quickly, Dusk Beyond the End of the World absolutely rules. The story follows a young man named Akira who awakens from cryosleep one day to find the world he knew long dead and buried beneath a new, more rural and agrarian society that apparently worships him as some kind of god. Though he quickly discovers that society is being forcibly kept at a roughly 18th century level of advancement, give or take a tractor, by an obviously fascistic one-world government called Owl. Before he knows it, a bully of a soldier has taken him into custody as a forbidden relic and resolved to wipe out the entire village just in case he imparted any forbidden knowledge to them. But then that sexy robot lady named Yugure shows up to do all that cool shit I just showed you and also ask him to marry her. Something Akira actually has to think about a little despite having just met the girl, because Yugure looks exactly like Toa Toasa, his ultra mega genius adopted sister slash fiance, who built that cryopod for him and also invented lifelike androids that are completely indistinguishable from real people when they're not doing crazy arm cannon shit.
Whoa.
More specifically, they are all indistinguishable from her, because apparently Toasa thought, I'm such a bad bitch, there should be hundreds of me. And you know what?
Nice.
She was absolutely right. Holy crap, what a babe. A babe who might possibly be the architect of the whole horrible current state of the world, but even if she's not, Akira obviously wants to find out what happened to her, so he and Yugure set out on a long journey to Tokyo to investigate, spending plenty of time exploring this gorgeously rendered and meticulously world-built post-apocalypse along the way, and of course fighting even more fascist goons. If I have any concerns for the series' future, it's that 12 episodes might not be quite enough time to explore that
interesting.
world as much as it deserves, but so long as the goon murder stays even half as spectacular as the pilot, I will be seated for the entire thing. Now, that is the last one
That looks
we
so
have waiting
cool.
for you under the tree. Can you guys tell I wrote this transition before moving Sanda back a spot? I'm sure it's fine. But you will find a few more anime stocking stuffers buried in the bargain bin, which we're also gonna kick off with an isekai just for kicks. A wild last boss appeared is basically Overlord at home with a gender-bending twist. Instead of a big scary skeleton man, Protag Kun's OP MMO character was more or less albedo, and before getting isekai'd, he actually used her to conquer the entire game world, only giving it up in a pre-agreed upon fight with some guys who were role-playing as super powerful heroes. Reincarnated into that same world 200 years later, she finds a society that both fears her and longs for the stability of her unilateral rule, as humanity has been pushed to the very edge of the inhabitable world by demonic forces in her 2 centuries of absence. All the non-gamers who now inhabit that world having way too much of a life to bother grinding all the way up to the level cap. It's a surprisingly thoughtful little isekai with an interesting world and, at times, a gorgeous cinematic flair to its action that came the closest of any anime in the bargain bin to making the main list. But speaking of gamer girls, Let's Play is an adaptation
It's
of a
called
cute little
Let's
webtoon
Play.
rom-com that I actually did a sponsored video about ages ago,
Oh.
in which an indie game developer finds herself living next to this hot jerk of a YouTuber who happened to play her game wrong on stream one day and effectively destroy its entire reputation.
no.
The original webtoon's a pretty well-researched portrayal of how game dev and influencer culture overlap, with a
That is
fun cast of
interesting.
characters and a solid.
Damn, what an interesting concept. Like, what an interesting, modern, relatable concept. That's so cool. Popular guy doesn't know how to play the game, so everyone's like, it's rubbish. Wow.
Sense of reference-heavy humor, and the anime does a good job of capturing those charms with strong storyboarding and an appealing art style. But the way that its early story had to be shuffled around to fit a 23-minute episode really throws into stark relief just how unfocused the broader plot of the comic is. The thing is, Sam's got like 3 different K-dramas worth of backstory, having previously been a sickly kid who was constantly in and out of hospital, and currently being the billionaire heiress apparent to a massive tech company, the handsome vice president of which very transparently wants to bone her. A
Nice.
frankly bizarre B-plot that kind of undermines the show's A-plot by removing any financial stakes tied to her game dev career.
Yeah, that's
It
weird.
is still a very fun show with some great romantic chemistry, don't get me wrong, but there are much tighter rom-coms you could be watching this season. Rom-coms like Pass the Monster Meat, m'lady, a villainess-adjacent romantasy thing about a prim and proper young woman with a predilection for eating monsters, and a nobleman
Oh.
with a knack for murdering them. Unfortunately, the series lacks the sort of in-depth biological world building that makes the monsters of, say, Dungeon Meshi so real you can taste them, but it does make up for that a little with the entertainment value of two weirdos upsetting high society by munching monster bits amid a posh chorus of, well, I nevers. Of course, it's nothing next to May I Ask for One Final Thing, but if you're into that sort of thing, you can't have too much of a good thing. On that note, I know people who are into Sympho gear kind of things generally can't get enough of those, so I'd like to direct those folks' attention to the new anime SI-VIS, The Sound of Heroes, which follows a superpowered idol unit, mixed gender for once, tasked with using their singing and dancing skills to stop extra-dimensional invaders from eating Tokyo.
Okay, right. God, wow. They've really gone all out with the concepts on some of these. I just think that's boss. It's about time. It's about time we went back to what anime used to be about. Being stupid and fun.
Like, literally, they suck chunks of it into a parallel dimension and something and permanently erase it from existence. It hasn't really been fully explained what's going on yet, but it does look really cool and scary. The music here's unfortunately not the best, which really hurts this kind of show,
Oh.
but SI-VIS's first episode does feature consistently solid animation and a pretty strong plot that takes several interesting twists and turns. I don't think it'll live up to the heights of Sympho Gear or even K-pop Demon Hunters for that matter, but I do think that some of you out there will love it anyway. Now, one sort of thing that I'm not typically into are those fucking things, and as you can probably gather from its title, the banished court magician aims to become the strongest is absolutely one of them. But as those fucking things go, it is pretty alright. It distinguishes itself by making the hot-headed adventurer that banishes our absurdly competent mage protagonist not the legendary hero for once, but rather an arrogant crown prince looking to prove his might by conquering the dungeon, which
And then we end up hating him and love watching him suffer. Alright, cool.
makes it make way more sense that he'd be this much of an incompetent dickhead, and adds an interesting little bureaucratic wrinkle where the banishment also strips Protag-kun of his hard-earned social rank. It's not that much of a wrinkle, but it is a wrinkle, and I certainly had more fun than you might imagine watching politics and paperwork get in the way of the dungeon crawling. It's definitely more interesting than yet another barely disguised bully revenge manifesto. So is the dark history of the reincarnated
Another
villain,
villainess.
which seems at first blush to be yet another in a long line of isekai about girls reincarnated as the irredeemable bully character from their favorite dating sims, except that Konoha Sato has actually been reincarnated as the irredeemable bully from her own cringy self-insert Chunibyo fantasy story she wrote when she was 12, which you'd think would give her
That's actually
even
quite
more
funny.
of an info advantage than your typical villainess protag. But the thing is, she's an adult now who hasn't thought about that shit
In
in
years.
and
Wow,
also
that's
the
cool.
plot and world building were really convoluted on account of her being 12 at the time she wrote them, so she doesn't really remember a lot of it so good.
That is
which
amazing.
is a fantastic
That's such a funny
idea for
twist
a
on it. I
story
love
that's
it.
sadly held back a little by a not all that good anime. Chitose in the Ramune Bottle, on the other hand, is a fantastically produced anime held back by some of the most contrived, pretentious dialogue you will ever have the misfortune of hearing. The basic premise is, have you seen my teenage rom-com snafu? It's pretty much that if Hachiman was popular and well-adjusted. Just the coolest guy in school and all the girls who want to bang him going around helping their classmates with various problems, starting with an otaku shut-in who's barely been at school all year since a girl rejected him. The actual message of that story doesn't seem to be too bad. Don't judge a book by its cover. Popular kids actually can be nice too. But the problem with the show is that all of the characters are just way too far up their own asses, jumping between waxing philosophical about mostly themselves and flirting with each other by post-ironically declaring that they are flirting, which is especially aggravating in the case of the protagonist, who, lacking all of Hachiman's self-doubt and self-hatred, kind of just seems like a massive narcissist with all his self-analysis, plus he's constantly negging literally every girl he knows like some kind of asshole.
大丈夫。ペダルの重さには触れないって。
そんなに重くないもん。
Mean.
But much like that protagonist, the show is just so darn aggravatingly good looking that it can kind of get away with that, and I would still recommend it to anyone with a passion for animation, so long as they can keep their passion for writing in check. If pretty pictures are what you're looking for, though, you should definitely be keeping your eye on more Chinese anime these days, like the very confusingly titled The Fated Magical Princess, Who Made Me a Princess, no question mark, which follows a Korean woman who ends up reincarnated into a book that she read once as this tragically fated princess who obviously she tries to avert the tragic fate of. Not that you'd actually know that from the incredibly confusing intro of the anime, which just gives that book to the princess as a baby through some kind of magic stuff, and the baby can already like think in full sentences and read the book for no apparent reason.
Anime.
And it just
It's
starts
anime.
time skipping
Cool.
around a bunch, and it kind of just feels like everything's moving like 30% too fast all the time, but it does still have some very strong character moments. The first scene where she changes her fate is very clever and well set up, and the palace that she calls home is breathtaking. So I do think that most villainess enjoyers will still find it quite enjoyable. Of course, looks aren't everything, though. With enough confidence and a good enough heart, anyone can be beautiful, and that's exactly what plus-size misadventures in love is all about.
Okay.
After apparently throwing herself off a roof because she just couldn't take being fat and ugly anymore, Yumeko awakens with an incredibly convenient case of amnesia that somehow only erased the part of her brain that hated herself. Now, utterly taken with her own chubby-cheeked cuteness and determined to take on this new-to-her world, she starts doing all the things she never had the confidence for. Pitching snack ideas to the company she works for, hitting on the guy she always sees on her commute, making friends with her coworkers, and wearing nice clothes that fit her body and make her feel good about herself. It's a relentlessly charming and
Very
uplifting
interesting.
little romantic comedy with an upbeat message of self-love I think a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah.
There's even a bit of intrigue mixed in there with the revelation that her big fall wasn't self-inflicted at all. It was
Murder.
If mystery and intrigue
Oh.
are what you're craving, though, you'll be better served by Nocia, an anime based on a widely acclaimed and wildly ambitious visual novel-style RPG that's basically single-player Among Us with time loops, following the crew of a quarantined starship as they try to suss out the alien imposter hiding among them. As
Oh.
visual novel adaptations go, this one's actually pretty solid, with slick cinematic storyboarding, a striking art style, and quite a few characterful animation flourishes. Also, I want to personally thank whichever artist created that skin-tight pant skirt with the inner thigh window. That is peak character design right there. However,
Spot
I
on.
can't shake the feeling that this strictly linear anime will just never be as interesting as the game that it's based on, and I'd much rather experience all the twists and turns
Through the
of
game.
solving the mystery myself before I see them animated. In all likelihood, it's gonna be a long-ass time before Nana Futami's work is ever animated, if she can even make it through the studio meeting without passing out from anxiety. But that doesn't make a mangaka's weirdly wonderful workplace any less entertaining. In fact, watching her awkwardly fumble through the early stages of her career and her barely disguised crush on her editor is one of the best things about this cute girls doing cute things thing, which is also fairly educational about the whole manga making process if you're interested in that. Though, if you are, there are definitely better moe shows out there about making manga and anime for that matter. Sadly, the same can be said for Touring After
Touring
the
After the
A
Apocalypse.
melancholy tale of two young women traveling through a beautifully broken world that immediately loses at least half of its appeal the second you remember Girls' Last Tour exists. That anime was a masterpiece, and this one is not. Almost anything it does differently from Girls' Last Tour you can see done better in Heavenly Delusion, Zom 100, and Yokohama Shopping Log, but it's still got a pretty strong vibe, entertaining characters, and utterly gorgeous background
That does
art
look good, to be
sell
fair.
that
Damn.
crumbling,
Damn.
overgrown setting. So if you've already seen all the post-apocalyptic
Yo.
classics, plus the new
Oh,
post-apocalyptic
of
instant
course.
classic Apocalypse Hotel, and you're still craving more, it'll definitely do the trick. That does
Sick.
mark the end of our little guided tour through the fall anime lineup, though, so in case you forgot anything, here's a list of all the shows I mentioned and where you can watch them. Let me know what anime you're watching right now in the comments down below, and while you're there, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more great recommendations and essays if you haven't
Digimon
already,
is
and
back.
consider joining
Baby.
our Patreon. I'm Jeff Thu, your humble anime Sherpa, and I'll see you in 3 months for our grueling climb up winter's absolutely stacked mountain of new shows.
Very cool. Some very interesting ones this season. I still need to check out. He's done a Crunchyroll video as well, but I might leave that for next week. Like I said, this week's just going to be like 1 or 2, maybe 3 videos, and then it's back into it next week, which I'm actually quite excited for. I think I needed a break from it, and plus obviously I moved into the house and I've been trying to set everything up, and I want to put some posters up, I want to put some shelves up, my Funko Pop collection. Like, let me see if I could just... I've got all... That wall needs stuff doing, and then I've got all these, all that going on. Like, yeah, so, yeah, I need to organize this house. But yeah, it's cool. I apologize for the lack of uploads, but it's been a very important year for moving into the house and doing my training for the marathon, which I literally just, I wear this hoodie everywhere. I am so proud of myself for doing that. 4 hours 9 minutes. I raised money for charity. Mind blowing stuff. So a couple of trips away, and then last week of this month I'm going to try and go for the 1 a day videos. We'll do 1 day November, and then December I'm just going to go crazy. I just bit my tongue. Gonna go crazy and try and do like 2 a day, and then like 5 YouTube shorts a day. Let's just absolutely go crazy with it, you know. I'm just gonna make up for everything and just upload far too many videos where I'm only going to get like 2 views a video because I'm uploading way too much stuff. But I don't care, because I do kind of miss doing this, and I'm getting back into it. But anyway, thanks for watching.